Yo, what up? You already know who it is.
You already know.
It's I, Big Dan.
Big Dan.
Rodan. I'm coming to you
Rodan.
live from the 215. Your comic book connoisseur, your Somali of sci-fi and superheroes, here to welcome you to the Blurred Bar.
Blurred bar.
And I am never by myself because if I was, it'd be a problem. And I have to pay somebody.
I am here.
Cobb's here.
Always.
And I am Queen Cobb,
QC.
sometimes known as QC.
Hey.
I am Queen Antiflex, the video game Ventress, the support character with boundaries,
Hey.
Sony's interim executive assistant with executive privileges, coming at you live at the Blur Bar.
At the Blurred bar.
And it's not just two of us.
Hey.
Where was my dolphin?
Yeah, I ain't getting myself either.
Well, you just kept it moving so fast. I was like, oh man.
He jumped right in.
Yeah.
Last time.
There it is. Hailing from the land of sake, shinobi, and samurai, the boy is Godzilla personified. Ain't no other name but this to go by. You already know who it is. J-Hawk.
Hawk.
Now, Blurred Bar, Barflies.
Barflies.
We have a very special guest. I'd like to consider him one of the OGs.
Philly's finest.
That's right. Because if you're from Philly, you know how we identify them, right? We call you OG.
OG.
Gotta
Philly's
give you that
finest.
respect. The great, the renowned,
Incomparable.
The published.
The published.
That's
Published. Let's start there.
published Jamar Nichols.
Hey.
Come on, clap it up, clap it up, clap it up.
Oh, no, not that one.
Thank you.
Yo, I got the Metal Gear joint. That was what's up. Steak. I love it. Yo, thanks for having me on, y'all. I'm really geeked to be here. So thank you so much.
Oh man, I'm beyond excited personally. Doing the digging that I did to try to find a guest.
Mm-hmm.
Your name was at the top of the list, and I was like, all you gotta do is ask. If he says no, it's because he's busy,
Right.
right? Or he don't really like, he don't want to bang with us.
I feel like we
Both
should be
things could be
thanking
true at
you.
the same time.
Multiple
And
truths.
both things can be an option, right?
We
So-
should be thanking you.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So we thank you for joining us, and really just want to get your perspective, kind of just on the industry and artists and illustrating and all that stuff. You have a book. If you guys don't know, Leon is currently available. I'd like to call it. It's not a young adult book yet because the main character is a fifth grader, so it's still kind of like child. But
Yeah, that's a middle grade. They have a whole category
Oh.
in traditional publishing now. Yeah, so it's early readers, middle grade, YA,
Okay.
and young, and I think teen or something like that. There's one right over YA, but
But would it
Yeah,
be
I'm
fair
a-
to say that it's for everyone? Like anyone can enjoy it?
yes, that's how I usually say it. And coming from comic book world, we would say all ages. We used to say things like that. With like a Archie or a Sonic book would be an all ages book. But traditional publishing, they don't like that phrase very much. So it's got to be like one of those. It's got to be one of those columns, and people go, "Oh, okay, I got it."
'Cause then
But yeah, middle grade.
who do we market to? You say
Marketing.
all ages, right? Yeah.
Right. Everybody can buy it, but we can't market that.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
now, before we get into the origin story of Leon, because I feel like that's your biggest and latest project, give us some background. Where you got started,
Sure.
what influenced you.
I was about to say, I also have some questions, but I definitely want to hear the origin story.
Oh, the
before we
origin
deep
story
dive.
is important, right? We got superhero in our midst, right?
Right.
Published. That's
Sure.
the important part. Until we get there,
Yeah, published. Hit that button a couple
hit that
times.
button for me.
Yo, I need an air horn button real bad in the studio. Yeah, how can I cop one of those?
S6E3.
Again, my name is Jamar Nicholas, and I am a professional cartoonist. My new title is, like I said, in this new space, they do things a certain way. I'm an author illustrator,
Author, illustrator.
is what they like to say. But I'm a cartoonist from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My family's from West Philly, and I've lived all over the
You
city.
must.
Yeah, give it a 50-second erase. What?
Okay, 50-second erase.
And I've lived all over the city, and really the spine of my origin story is I always wanted to be a comic strip artist. When I was young, when people still read the newspaper. I had a really young fascination with Doonesbury. I don't know if y'all if y'all mess with that.
I'm familiar with Doonesbury.
Yeah, and the stuff was way too advanced for me. I was way too young, but there was something about the art style that just drew me in, and wanting to kind of be in control my own universe really stuck out to me. Along those lines, I kept going, wanting to be a cartoonist. When I was coming up in the city, it was not a popular career choice for young people. Every place I went to school, I was the cartoonist kid. I was a cartoon kid.
I see you went to. Did you go to Kappa?
I went to Kappa.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there in that, and big up Kappa. I got to give a shout out to Ninth and Catherine Kappa.
I was about to say, were you at the church-looking Kappa or like some other Kappa?
No, the
Kappa
church
before
looking
the church
Kappa.
Kappa.
Yeah, the before Kappa,
Yeah.
the across the street from MLK Projects Kappa.
Ah.
The get busy Kappa. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah,
Hold off.
a lot of people. A lot of people are really interested in me talking about high school because I was there. That I guess I would call it the golden age. So I was there with Boys to Men, The Roots, Joey DeFrancesco, like Christian McBride, like all those cats who were all there at the same time.
Wow.
And
You really are like one of Philly's finest, like royalty. Like, you're literally in the same class with them.
Well, one of the coolest things about that is kind of when everything was wrapping up, and Boyz II Men got a record deal because they were like, "Yo, we met Michael Bivins at this talent show. Well, we got a deal." And people were like, "Word, like, yo, come down to the school on Saturday. We're going to shoot the video for Motown Philly. Word, And things started happening. And what was such a really amazing thing for my life was that I saw cats actually make it.
Yeah.
Like I saw people blow up, like for real, and that made me fearless in a way. So I give a lot of credit to those guys being the pioneers for that.
Question for you regarding
Yeah,
that.
sure.
So when you said that as a cartoonist and the sort of interest that you had was not very popular, but you were in a school where, like you said, like you were with what became Philly's finest. People that were actually making it. What did that look like at an art school? Like to be like in a field that was not very popular. What did that sort of look like in the framework of like an art school?
Well, I feel like a lot of my friends bled for our pop culture now. You've heard a lot of people kind of battle like, yo, back in my day, I would get beat up for reading comics, all those war stories. But when I was at Kappa, like I was not the fan favorite. My teachers hated my guts. They really hated they really hated cartoons, and they were like, "Yo, would you please stop drawing this garbage and draw this bowl of fruit?" You know what I mean? With this long piece of with this long piece of compressed charcoal, and and it's not like I was against learning the foundations because everybody's art is better when you know where you come from and all of that. But I had a compulsion to want to be a cartoonist, but I wasn't getting pats on the back there, so I basically taught myself.
Interesting.
Yeah,
it's funny because Kappa's requirements to get in for high school students now is still very traditional. They say they explicitly say no anime and no cartoons. You still have to draw the still life, the self-portrait. So even to this day, just it seems like throughout time, it's just like, well, you can do that when you get in, but when you're
Right.
in, but in order to get in, no cartoon. So it seems like that's kind of still there.
Well, you know what? Now being a gray beard and kind of looking back on stuff, I can understand to a degree why they say things like that because, if you say, yeah, draw whatever you like, and it's just going to be 10 pages of SpongeBob and like badly drawn anime characters. And it's kind of like, that's cool, but like,
This fruit, though.
as no, I mean, like I had some cartoons in my portfolio, and for people that don't know, you have to audition to get into Kappa, and this is an '85 when I was trying to audition, and I had a presentation case, and I had some like really well copied pictures of the Hulk, and then my mom's kind of gave me the blueprint, and I also had the bowl of fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the self portrait, and I had all that other kind of stuff to have a balance.
Gotcha.
But so even with what you just said, that makes perfect sense. They're still not fans of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I persisted.
You guys have any questions?
Well, no, I mean, still listen to the origin story.
Okay.
I'm ready
Oh,
to
yeah.
but,
Yeah, I can keep going. I know we don't have that much time, and I'm a talker, so please cut me
we
off
love it.
if I.
we have questions, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the audience really gets to know who you are.
Yeah,
Sure,
they're gonna
sure.
see us for another few episodes. They're not
At
gonna
least
see.
They're already
before
tired
we
of
get
us.
canceled. Right?
Yeah,
They're tired of us already.
So
The less we talk, the less likely we are to get canceled.
So you had mentioned that you had like impressions of the Hulk and all that stuff.
Mhm,
As
mhm,
far as
mhm.
you said Doonesbury, but were there like any major comic books that were like influencing the Jamar Nicholas of now? So
Yeah, so at that time, again, I didn't. My first love affair was with comic strips, and then I learned about the comics later. So I'm a weird kind of comic book head. Like I came into it later at the corner store in my neighborhood. This is probably what 79, 80. You could go and get a 3-pack of comics with the covers ripped off for 25 cents.
wow.
So I started getting into that, but I didn't know. This is really funny. I didn't know that there were other artists that drew this stuff.
Mm.
It just, like it was a lot of Ditko reprints, and there was a lot of Ditko Spider-Man, and that was my thing. But I didn't know Steve Ditko drew it. But those early impressions, like I was a big Spider-Man guy, and that was one of my earliest impressions. And then from there, I probably found out at Kappa. I found out that there were comic book stores in the city, because I'm going to school downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are all Philly cats, so you know how kind of compartmentalized the city is.
Yeah,
like you
very much.
grow up in a neighborhood, you kind of stay in that neighborhood
Yes.
unless you have a reason to leave it.
Yeah.
So some cat in my homeroom was like, "Yo, we're going to Fat Jack's." I'm like, "Yo, what's that?" It's like it's a whole store with comic books, and like my head exploded. So after that, I was really into X-Men, and I just kind of went from there, classic Avengers and stuff like that. But I'm still traditionally a comic strip guy.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Was the comic book realm as overwhelming back then than it is now? It's for now. I mean, I have a hard time figuring out where to start. So
Yeah.
back in, you said like 70s, 80s,
79, 80.
79, 80s,
Yeah,
that was
like
in the midst
yeah,
of a lot of creation. So I'm wondering, what did that look like back
yeah.
then?
So like I would say like 85, 86, 87 comic book stores, and somebody could argue me with the dates, but I remember going into the store, and I think the cover price for stuff was 75 cents then. Isn't that wild, right? You could get a nice batch of books for $10.
Oh my
Oh
goodness.
my
And and just to kind of submit myself here, I remember the Marvel Epic line Akira books started coming out,
Mm-hmm.
like
and that
like
and that
like
yeah.
the anime.
Yeah, it was it was a Marvel series that they kind of basically chopped up the manga,
Ah,
and it was the first digitally colored comic book work
Oh wow.
in the industry,
interesting.
and yeah, and that was pretty early. So, but yeah, it was a lot of different stuff, and it also felt kind of funky and underground. Like I was in this stuff that like Elf Quest and all this other kind of weirdo D&D stuff that I was kind of into. But I was a big Marvel guy, and I never
We
really got into
appreciate you
DC.
being here.
No, my peoples, right?
I'd
Um,
like to learn.
but yeah, but to answer your question, it was really eclectic, and it felt really underground because not everybody was into it.
Mm-hmm.
So like that classic Simpsons comic book guy, the comic shop guy,
Mm-hmm.
where they were all run by those dudes, and they did not like you being in their store.
Does it feel like that
Comic
now?
ever.
Yeah.
It's more accepting now because I would blame Big Bang Theory on
Hmm.
Really?
that culture
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
really opened up the door to being anyone could be a nerd, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Like nerds stopped being a very marginalized group and became, you know, whether or not you were on the spectrum, whether or not you were just highly intelligent, or if you liked Harley Quinn's, mismatched clothes, then everyone kind of broke into that space after Big Bang Theory. But
Hmm.
before that, it was very much like underground.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
recently.
Because they try to
Hmm.
validate us now by saying, "Oh, you guys didn't get beat up for liking nerd stuff," but there was some people who did, like
Hmm.
because that was all that they liked. But
Right.
Well, yeah, in the grand scheme of time, yes, recently. With
I
the
would
speed
say
of the internet,
2013,
it
and
probably feels like ages ago, right?
the
Like,
MCU. The MCU is another good example of like people just wanting to get involved in the world because
Hmm.
now you see actors playing these people who've been on
True.
comic books for the last 50 years.
But I feel like it's at this point where MCU, in its popularity, has it really elevated the comic book world?
Yes.
Or they still seem to operate separately where I don't really hear about Marvel comic. I hear a lot about MCU, but I still don't hear a lot about Marvel comic books.
I would, as the avid reader, I guess,
You're
out
the
of
reader.
group,
You know.
it's influenced so much so that like character designs
I see.
have now aligned with what you see in the MCU.
Ah,
Like,
okay.
Tony Stark had a mullet. Like the
That's cool.
what was the
Bring that back.
that group they sing Man Eater.
oh, Hall and Oates?
Hall and Oates.
Oh.
He had the Hall and Oates
Philly boy.
hairstyle.
Yeah,
Philly
like,
boy.
Another
Yeah,
another Philly boy. Yeah. Yeah.
but like stuff like that.
I see.
Once Robert Downey
Hmm.
Jr. showed up, then he started getting the goatee shaped
I
like
see.
it, and
But
T'Challa got hair. It's
I
crazy.
I wonder, to Alicia's question, and maybe Jamar, you can answer this. Has there been turnover? Like, how much turnover from, or how many follow through clicks? I guess you could call them, from like people who like see the MCU now dive into the comic books.
I always feel like that's been a fight for us because with the popularity of the MCU and even the DCEU and Comic Con and all of these things kind of converging on like geek culture, I still don't think it trickles down to comics like it should. And me being an author, I'm always going to be on team reading, team
Yeah.
book in your hand,
Yeah.
right? That's always where I default to. And you know, us as the creators want to think, well, hey, you know what? If this movie comes out, y'all gonna run to the comic shop. But people like movies.
Yes.
People like TV,
Yeah.
and it's kind of. I mean, it's not that it doesn't happen, but it's not as prevalent as people think.
Yeah.
People don't run to a comic book store to find further adventures of Tony Stark. They'll wait for the next movie.
Right.
Yeah, because I was thinking like with anime and manga, it seems to be the case where people sort of go back to the manga mostly to catch up. But
Right.
with comics, I'm just like, do all writers within the comic book universe really benefit truly the way that especially when we're thinking about the revenue that these films make? Do writers actually benefit from that? Are they elevated from the popularity and the revenue that's granted from these movies? And I question that even as someone that has no familiarity with comics, I just wonder, like, I don't really hear a lot about people going back to read.
I
Right.
and I don't think they will, largely due to the fact that most of the characters of the MCU, their creators have passed on.
Yeah, these are stories from years ago,
Yeah,
like
It's
ages
not
ago.
decades.
not everybody, but like
A good
Stan
number.
Lee, Steve Ditko, like these people created a large portion of that, and so the writers who now have taken that on, unless they've created a new character like Miss Marvel, they don't really see the fruits of their labor. Miles Morales being created by Jonathan Hickman, and all of those things. not Jonathan Hickman.
Bendis.
Bendis. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
All of my comic book fans, and I don't want to. I don't want to be.
They're all screaming in the chat.
Nerding out. We need like a nerding out sound.
But like Bendis and people like that are still alive to see the fruits of their labor. But a lot of the older established characters, there's really no payoff for that. So there's no call back to the comic books unless you have like events that happen in the movies. Right. But even then, if you go back and read that stuff, you're like, oh, this is completely different. It's very involved. So many people.
And I was about to say, the only people who would really appreciate it are the people who have already read the comic books and like
appreciate it or hate it.
And to Jamar's point, I don't know if many people are gonna really go back to be like, oh, that was so cool, because connecting to what Alicia said, they're getting into comic books now. Where do you start? New 52? Nah, that's already done and over with, right? Like,
blame Disney.
There's like so many things that it's just like, well, where do
it all depends on what you want and who you want to read first, and then if you want to go back and backdate, Spider-Man's are almost closest to its 1000th issue, The Amazing Spider-Man. There's really no stopping anymore, so you can just ask somebody, what storyline should I start at? And that might be issue 979. Who knows? But
Jamar.
Oh, well, I wanted to add to that right before. I think, I'm in my feelings right now because I turned 50 on Saturday.
Hey!
So thank you. I need this. I need the saber to cut the champagne top off with. So like, I think what's probably missed with the younger generations who maybe kind of coming into the comic book fandom from the movies and kind of like going back and backtracking. You have to understand that the system was not set up to benefit creators at all back then. A giant part of the reason Image Comics was formed was just for that point, that guys weren't getting their original pages back. And there's stories from back in the day in the 80s where they would just like, after when the artists would turn in physical illustration boards of comic book issues, they would run copies of it, to shoot to film for the comic book issues, and they throw that stuff in the trash dumpster. Wow. You know what I mean? It was just commodity. So even in a lot of guys' contracts, which is for the most part work for hire, and and that just kind of already sets a precedent for how you're going to see any further money from being a comic book creator. Is that the internet didn't exist, the movies were whack. If there was a comic book movie, it was like really like what I mean. It was like B level, like E level stuff.
Captain America.
So
the motorcycle was weird.
Yeah, the motorcycle and the see-through shield, like from the 70s. Like it's like that's not cool.
They did the best they could. 70s.
So right, so you see a lot of the older creators. I'm not going to put anybody's name out there, who are just kind of like, you'll see some older fans say, "Yo, they couldn't even give them credit in the joint at the end," like, or they'll go, "Oh, well, these guys helped make Thor." Put them in the scene where they're all eating dinner in Valhalla. Like that's not really a come up.
Nobody knows.
Right? It's like
people know.
You know what I mean? And that's a cool little shout out. But, again, it just wasn't structured for that. So the more modern creators now know what the deal is. And you'll see that there's been, they've really dried up with making new characters at Marvel and DC, because guys used to just make characters to fill in the story in the issue. Like, oh, we need a villain for this month. I don't know. Make Cardiac, but now they own that, and people don't want to give away their IP like that anymore. It's interesting. It's a really interesting study.
That's something that we could, I'm sure, go down into, because we've talked about that at least twice. Anywho, continuing on the origin story.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What made you focus on telling stories for what was it, middle age, or was it something
middle
kind of middle years?
Middle grade.
Middle grade. Almost.
You're almost there. Yeah.
Especially as you like created your own brand and your own company and everything. What made you focus in on that as opposed to branching out, or do you plan to?
Well, I started in comics as a self-publisher. I started self-publishing in 1998, and before that, I was doing other kind of illustration stuff. And probably 15 years ago, I did a little series for Tokyo Pop. I think Tokyo Pop keeps trying to re-exist, but they kind of fell down and they keep trying to get back up. It was kind of like a gateway drug chapter book series for kids called The Gross Adventures. I didn't create it. I illustrated it, and this lady named Annie Auerbach wrote it. And it was about these two little boys who go on adventures and solve their problems by farting. It's very juvenile, right? But it was my first time kind of doing chapter book work, and I like fell in love with the storytelling. It was really pure, and I really connect to that time in childhood, where just kids on bikes was all you needed to tell a story, and I like living in that space, and it made me want to do more kids stories. So that's kind of what I got the bug to create Leon. I actually created Leon probably 20 years ago off of the back of one of my other comic book properties, but I never did anything with him, and then I just kept developing him until 2011, where we did a really early Kickstarter with a couple other creative friends of mine to do a 3-book graphic novel series, and Leon was mine. So Leon, Protector of the Playground, was a graphic novel I put out in 2011, which is now out of print. You guys, if you look for it, people keep telling me they're seeing it on eBay for $300.
Oh boy.
They'll cop that.
Yeah.
2-part question.
Yes, please.
So first part is, at what point did you decide, because even going to art school does not necessarily dictate the career that there are plenty of people that go to art school that end up becoming something completely different. So at what point, either in high school, after high school, before, did you decide, okay, this is something that I want to do?
When did you know?
And the second part of it is, why choose characters with no superpowers? Like no physical, these supernatural powers, and sort of what made you decide to sort of tap into the powers that we have as individuals, like the abilities that we have and the skills that we already have, and using that as superpowers. So that's like the 2-parter.
Oh no, those are great questions. I think the first part for me was that I'm kind of coming up in this space, like a lot of my peer group are other comic creators, and it's really fantastic that a lot of my buddies are like majored people, and I get to see that. But I also see how hard people work for not a lot of attention. Not attention. It's more like I think the return on investment of being a comic book creator sometimes isn't as good as it should be. Not even just equity wise, but just kind of like attention wise, or eyeballs, or the optics of it. And I'll get to it. A lot of my buddies, their body of work are spines and spines of books on a Barnes and Noble shelf, and that's amazing. And a lot of comic book creators kind of value their careers as how many pages have I drawn over my lifetime. But I've seen so many people go, but that's I like the other dude that draws Flash, and they just kind of whittle people down real fast. Or what else have you done? Or like, oh, yo, he's going to draw Wonder Woman next. And I just felt like, I don't think people care like they should. I think most people are fans of a character and they're fans of a creator next. So I really wanted to just kind of do my own thing and, tip the cap to, the comic book world and tropes and stuff like that, but not necessarily make a new Static Shock. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people get stuck in like Black Superman, or I need to make this, but make him look like that.
Yeah.
And I just totally stayed away from all of that. So that's, and also the non-super thing is, I think people are fantastic just as they are. And I like to celebrate normalcy in a way.
I love that.
Now, let me know if I'm giving away a spoiler for anyone that may read Leon, but are you the educator?
No, I'm the bus driver.
Or are you the educator?
Everybody.
No,
Okay.
no, I'm not the educator.
I didn't
That
reveal later on. I'm only halfway through, but
oh no, yeah, keep reading, you'll get there.
okay. Because I saw that and I was like, he's the educator. I know it. I was waiting for it to like be revealed. But I'm glad you could answer that for me.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
sure.
What's your favorite drawing or comic you've made, and what inspired it?
That's great. Um, I think there's a not to be corny, but I think my favorite thing is the thing that I haven't done yet.
Mm.
And we talk about comic book theory and craft and the craft of cartooning, and study like the old greats like Winsor McKay, who created Little Nemo in Slumberland back in the 1800s. And I think one thing that keeps your ego in check is that you're always a student,
Hmm.
and there's always somebody who did it better than somebody is doing it now. Like if you like Bone, Jeff Smith's Bone
Hmm.
book, it's a beautiful, majestic thing.
Nerd.
If you guys ever read Bone, go pick it up tomorrow. But he was influenced by Walt Kelly, who's an old comic strip artist back in the early 1900s. Magnificent work. You don't know how they did the stuff with a brush.
Hmm.
Um, I always want to get better and do better than I did the last time. But I feel great when I make a really good nose on a page. It's real simple stuff.
Hmm.
Like, oh, that's a good shoelace. That was the best shoelace I've drawn today. It's real simple things, but just kind of having that passion to keep getting better is what I really love about being a cartoonist.
That's
I
dope.
love that.
When did you? So kind of a bit more than Alicia's question of when did you plan to like do this for real? When did you know, or do you know how big you are? Like when was it like, oh snap, I can either like live off of this and or oh yeah, put some respect on my name. I'm
Self
Jamar
awareness
now.
questions.
Yeah.
We love those.
That's a great and Alicia. I don't know if I answered your question to the extent that you wanted, but
No, that was great. I love that.
okay, all right, cool. That's a hard question. Like, I just got a bunch of interviews on local media. I don't know if you guys saw any of that. I was on Channel 3
I
and
saw that.
Channel 10,
Mm.
and all of that. And they had the top of my head shining and everything. I needed my bucket hat. But there was a question. They're like, "Yo, do you?" They kind of asked that. It's like, "Do you know how whatever sauce they wanted to put on me?" And I said, and I believe this is that going back to that student question is that I'm very confident as in my skills as a cartoonist, and I've been on this road for like 25 years doing this stuff. So I'm not a big person that has a lot of like false humbleness, or I'm not a bragger, and I don't wear a cape. You know what I mean? Or come out of a car with a Bengal tiger next to me. I just do my thing. You know what I mean? But I understand that I've been somebody in this business who's been the first to do a lot of things.
Mm.
I've been that guy who was like, oh, word, he did that, or yo, he did that first, and I just kind of keep it moving. But yeah, I'm aware that people know who I am at this point, and I think the to answer the second part was when I got my Scholastic contract, I knew I didn't have the space to have a day job anymore
Mm.
because my new career as an author is like double full time.
Yeah.
I was busy holding down a JO, but like this, I work like like mad long
Yeah.
hours, but it's all on me or the brand
Hmm.
to a totally different extent than I was aware of.
That's awesome.
That kind of ties into
Yeah,
sorry.
you're good.
That ties into a question I have about sort of like the things that you love becoming your career,
Hmm.
because I know that it's like an interesting line when you do the things that you love and it becomes a career. It's like it becomes this, it becomes this like, and in some ways it's like this pressure that
Like
can
the stock
sometimes,
market.
like, well, I didn't say that, no. But our hobbies sometimes are hobbies because it's like there's no pressure, there's no
Yeah.
expectations. I do it because I love it, no matter how bad I am at it. Dan. Just kidding. but my question, I meant like gaming.
You don't need the Metal Gear joint.
I meant gaming. But art and writing seems to be a major part of your career.
Yes.
I can assume maybe your identity, but sort of how does that sort of show up in like your you time? Does it show up in your you time? Is it something different? Did I steal your question?
No, a little bit. I was like, how do you balance and or view hustle culture and living life?
Okay, yours is better than mine, but
No, that was a
That-
better question.
No, those are all
making it a
legit.
competition.
That was a good question.
We're not
Let the man
competing.
answer the question.
I won, but it's not a competition.
But I won though. Yeah, I'll say this, and I was, if I was like low key nervous about talking to you guys tonight, I was hoping you didn't ask me a lot of like modern popular culture questions, like, yo, what'd you think about,
The news yesterday.
what did you think about like Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Right.
Because when I tell you I didn't see it, you're going to be real upset with me. So, but to that point is, I guess I hate to call it sacrifice because there's people out there doing like stuff like hanging off the side of an oil rig, which is like a real sacrifice. I'm just drawing comic books, but there's a lot of things that you kind of have to put down or just doesn't become as prevalent to your week as when you're a fan or you're a amateur or however you want, a hobbyist.
Yeah.
Probably the nicest thing to say
Yeah.
is a hobbyist. So when I communicate sometimes with people who are just fans of the culture or they're fans of this or they love Game of Thrones, they're like, yo, JN, you're a D&D nerd. Yeah, definitely. Yo, what'd you think of Game of Thrones? I haven't seen it. And they go, what? I'm like, I'm busy. And I'm busy doing stuff to the point where that other things is just like there's no way I'm going to sit down and watch that. As dope as it is, and I keep thinking I'm going to get to it. I'm going to go one summer. I'm going to sit down and watch all of it. But I think I'm kind of cooked in a way. Like my attention is always somewhere else, or working on the next thing, or developing something else.
I mean,
So
it sounds like
Oh,
you've been blessed.
I'm sorry. Last piece of this. So, and this is a question I ask a lot of my other comic book buddies: is do you know how to relax?
That was going to be my question.
That was, man, I had a question.
We're on the same page. We're the same.
And I'll have to say, you know what? It's real hard to stay still. It really is. Like, I can't tell you the last time I went, if I took a vacation, that I went and I didn't bring work with me. The idea of like crunching your toes in the sand is cool, but I'm probably have a tablet or a sketchbook with me while I'm doing it. You know what I mean? So I'm immersed in it.
Can I ask you the miracle question that us counselors tend to ask clients?
Sure.
So say if it was 7 a.m. when we were having this conversation and you were told either by yourself or someone else that at 8 a.m. you have the whole day to yourself to do whatever you want. No obligations, no due dates, nothing. It's just a free day. What would you do?
I'd probably be working. I'd probably be drawing.
As a form of just like pure enjoyment.
Like
or would
not
you
for
catch
anybody else's eyes, just
yours,
just you.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
What's the difference between someone who's created something and a creator?
A good one. I love that.
Because
I don't think I would ever say that. I love what you just said, but I don't think I could say that myself because this sounds like mad ego. You know what I mean? I feel like I couldn't say that.
I think I would say that maybe you subscribe to that because what happens is when the wheels are always turning for you.
Yeah.
The ability to relax is to still create because it's passion.
Interesting.
And so, because we can often demonize people who don't stop working.
Yeah.
Because naturally, in our.
Well, now the pendulum has swung to start demonizing people
Yes.
who don't stop.
I
working.
agree.
But even I would say early '90s is when you started hearing about the working man and he didn't have time for his family or his friends.
Yeah.
And all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm saying in the respect of someone who does actively create,
Mhm.
that's where their peace lies. That's where the passion lies in that. And so because of that, you got to put respect on their name, right? Like they don't stop. Even if their sand the sand is in their socks, in their shoes,
They're not in the socks.
They are still they got something in their hands and they're creating. So you got to respect.
Dan with the poetry.
Sometimes I'm good.
I love it, but just to add another layer to that, I love what you just said there, and I am probably a little different than a lot of my comic book buddies who, like when they give you your comic book sword, I'm making stuff up. When they give you your comic book sword, they point you this way and say you die a warrior's death, and you die on the battlefield. When I was younger, to hear like, oh, Charles Schultz, he just dropped dead at his drafting table. What a great way to go out. Right, that's a cartoonist death. You drop dead, and they say, he did what he loved. Oh, this is the last Snoopy strip. You know what I mean? Like they kind of compress your life into that.
Oh my gosh.
Right? I mean, and to ask a comic book artist or a cartoonist, yo, what about retirement? And they go, what? Like we don't retire.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Does that come from like just an intense passion for the work that you do, or does it feel like something that you have no choice? Like is there consent in this?
I was about to say, or it could be argued that few artists get to that point where they could.
Even like very popular artists are still like many manga artists have died on the board. Yeah. So it's like, is this coming from a place of like, this is the work that I love and I do, or is it like, well, this is what I got to do? But it's also
I think I think it's a compulsion. And I think it's also, I think it's less being a cartoonist or I think it's more a creative in an art thing. Like, how many artists do we even know in our own modern history that stop creating at a certain age?
That's fair.
It's not. And I remember when I used to have these arguments when I was younger about even going to art school. And I had a lot of resistance, and people say like, yo, but how you going to make money? That's always the first one. But the second one is like, yo, what about you need to save for retirement? You need to do this. And I'm just like, I think being a cartoonist is a lifestyle. It's not even a job at this point. Yeah. And when people kind of find out how much time, and I'm not trying to big up myself, but once they find out how much time and energy and sweat equity you put into something, a lot of people are like, nah, I'm out. I could never do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'd like to draw my little thing and then I close the book when I'm tired, or I want to, do something else. But we all kind of go past this point of no return to get things done, So, but to balance this out, over the past 10 years, I've been thinking like, you know what? I don't want to work myself into a grave, even though I work, like, I don't want to tell you how long I work every day, but I want to walk my dog. I want to sit outside and like, watch the ships roll in. Like I want to balance, if you want to call that work-life balance, I'm very aware of that. And, sometimes I just have to get up and, I'm not resting, but I just need to like turn the screen off for a minute just so I can like, try to put some equilibrium on my day. But I'm very aware of kind of like the end of the road for cartoonists. I don't know if that feels grim, but it's kind of what it is.
I wouldn't be too worried about it.
That makes sense though, because it sounds like, like I think I may have said earlier that it sounds like this is not just a thing that you do, but it's your identity. Where it's like you can't really truly take it off. Kind of like I was thinking about maybe being like a parent, where it's like you may have those days where you don't have the kids and you can just do whatever, but that you're still a dad. That's not something that you can just take off. It's always on.
That's
even when
real.
you're not you're not acting as a dad in the moment. You're still a dad. So I'm thinking the same thing about like artists and creators.
Facts. I agree with that, and I don't. Maybe that's not sexy to hear.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like I think people. Just like, oh well, but tell me about when you drew Doctor Strange. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? It's like I think a lot of people don't want to think that deep into it. It's just like, oh, you create entertainment, things that I consume and I enjoy. Where's the next one?
Mm.
And that's kind of the end of our transaction. But to think like, wow, do you get to go to the beach once in a while? People normally don't ask me that, so I really appreciate these questions.
Yeah,
We're
and
deep.
I think what we fail to do, especially when we are in the presence of creators or people who have already achieved and broken barriers, and the OGs, right? A lot of times we want to know what you've done, and then somehow attribute that to how great you are on whatever totem pole, but to actually acknowledge you as an individual, and how is this your identity, or whether or not it is, if it is your identity. Those are the better questions to ask, because we're people talking to people.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that I would ask from you, beyond all of this, is that when you do get free time, can we all play D&D together?
Yo, let's roll up some characters. I'm in.
Now, are you more of like a DM or?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
See,
you probably be a dope DM.
What's a DM?
Dungeon
The dungeon master. Yeah,
like tells the story and
Yeah.
leads you on your quest.
we gotta set that up.
Yeah.
I would have to
when.
learn. I have to learn. I don't know how to play D&D.
Oh, it's pretty simple.
I didn't know last year, and then
I want to learn.
We got the,
To even make it more enticing, we can do a Marvel superheroes campaign.
Oh boy, that actually made it less enticing.
All right, we could do
No
D&D.
Disney.
That's fine.
Just D&D.
No Disney, please.
Well, I'll send you my email. We can do the Marvel thing separately. I'm not excited. But,
That's what's up.
no, I think that's really important. To whenever you get that free time, we'd love to be able to just watch you just be.
And you can bring your notepad too, so you still
if you must.
Yeah.
You have to.
Thank you, guys.
I have some fun questions.
Sure.
He is on a time.
Yeah, because funsies.
No, we can keep going. I'm good. Good. Go ahead.
My first one is a streaming service comes to you. I said streaming service because maybe you don't bang with like Netflix. Maybe you like Hulu. Who knows? But a streaming service comes to you and they want to make an adaptation of your works. Would you keep it animated or go the live action route? And you can separate it. So if Detective Boogaloo Hip Hop Cop is animated, but the Leon series is turned into like a live action series or movies, you can switch it up. But what would you do?
Oh, I like the homework too. Animated all the way. And also I have to EP. I got to produce.
Yes.
I got to direct it too. Just give me the ball. I'm going there. You know what? It's funny, especially with just the history of male, like talking about Leon, like male cartoon characters are usually voiced by female.
Yes.
I don't know. That's a good question. I feel, you know what? In my head, I feel like Leon sounds like Gary Coleman. Remember the kid from Different Strokes?
I was thinking Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh man,
Gary. Sorry.
Yo, that's
It
wild.
was just a thought. Sorry.
Hey, we'll give her a test, see how it sounds. Yeah, we'll consider her. Put her on the short list. But animated. And I want to answer the rest of your questions, but I was just at a school visit, and this might be spicy, but one of the kids asked me. I love kid questions. That's my favorite thing in the world is kid questions. Kind of like, do you like oatmeal?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, bad honest.
Oh man,
This kid.
too late.
This kid asked me, like, when's the movie coming or something like that. A lot of people ask that question, like, yo, I want to see a cartoon. And, I don't want to get into hot water because I know that we all love to ingest media, right? We just need it. And I said, first and foremost, I don't want to break any hearts. If all that stuff happens, and I've been in talks with some people, that's all gravy. But I'm a cartoonist. We already established that.
You said book in hand.
I make books. I draw books that kids hug to their chest till the cover falls off.
Mhm.
If we make cartoons, you watch that cartoon, you go through the season and go, "Where's the next one?" Or you forget about it. It's very like it's consumable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like Where the Wild Things Are never needed to have a movie made
Not at
because the
all.
book is all you need. You know what I'm saying? So I'm very sensitive about that, and I love to answer the questions because people like eyes light up when you talk about movies.
Mhm.
But that's not my end goal. I want to make more books.
That's fair.
We need more readers.
You should have been like,
Yeah.
young bull.
You wild.
If you don't take this book,
Well, and also, and again, I want to keep going back to the questions, but I think it's really important that we make sure that the door is open for kids to read.
Mhm.
Like I think people will tell you, people will say kids don't read. That's not true.
kids read.
Kids read, but I also think it's a big part of your household. Like if you don't come from a reading family, you ain't reading.
True.
You know what I mean? So, and you don't make more comic book fans if
Right
they
now,
don't read.
They do not stop.
Yes,
Mhm.
I love to hear that.
You know?
We have to change our books every day because it's
I love
Yeah.
it.
nonstop.
The best thing is when a kid comes to school and they have a book that's like not the school's book. It's like their own.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
books are like such a. It's it. The fact that it's like a physical object is such a is significant, right?
Yeah.
You always have it with you.
Mhm.
It's not like it's just not just something for consumption.
Yeah.
So I love seeing kids with like books that are like
Yeah.
all beat up and like gross because it's like this shows use.
I love
I love it.
I love books, and we've talked about this because of space. I have adopted like I used to not be an e-reader person, but it got to a point where it's like I'm not gonna be packing up all these books when I move, like from apartment to
Right.
apartment.
Adults, adulting,
Not every time.
Like not every time.
adulting.
I love it.
Good kindling after a while.
Oh my goodness.
The Kindle.
You hold on to your tablet,
Just a little bit longer.
throw it to the ground, and
Mhm.
I have two more questions, but I don't want to.
No, I have.
We're good.
Because I did want to ask some fun questions to kind of get some insight on
Sure.
if he has a sense of humor or not. We'll see.
I think he does.
But I think we're fine. I'm not worried about it.
He's like, jokes on you.
Now you've done big names in the past, right? So and you're familiar with most superheroes. So my question to you would be, if you could pick any superhero to be your assistant, however it be manager, secretary, whoever, what character would that be?
Like my day-to-day studio assistant, but they're a superhero.
Like your emails, your phone calls, they get you coffee. They stay as late as you to stay.
Let me just sit with that for a minute. That's
yeah, that's
funny.
like a pre-question. That's the one you gotta like think about. Like,
Sure, but I thought I'd ask it
that was a good one though.
because it might.
You ready for?
There might just be a character he wants to like.
He thinks about it on the
Subject to
daily.
servitude.
Like, damn it,
Yeah.
if I just had a night crawler,
Yeah.
get me this coffee.
He just
My first thing, I want to say Astro Boy, but we got to put a hoodie on him. Like he can't have.
the shirtless.
No.
He need to put a shirt on. He got to put a shirt on. He got little shorts.
Before
He got little shorts.
He got short.
He got to, he can't be up in the
shirt
studio
before
with.
draws. What a mess.
And you know that Astro Boy has a butt machine guns, right? You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah,
What machine guns on
yeah. He
his butt?
yeah.
Oh,
He turns around and he bends down, and there's little guns that
famous
come out of
Prince
it.
outfit where his cheeks was out, but he still had pants on.
That's in the classic Astro Boy. This is funny. Probably Rage from the New Warriors.
Wow.
What do they
Such a
do?
Great answer.
What do they
Because
do?
nobody. Oh man, that just made me feel so happy that you.
Comic
mentioned
book
that.
guy. Is
I was about to
just,
say
I
that's
nerded out. Real
Well, you gotta break Rage down real quick.
All right, so Rage is one of the few black characters in Marvel who he gets stronger, but he's also like
by being an angry black man.
enraged, right? So the angry black man trope,
Oh,
unfortunately, is applied to this character. But when he's partnered with other black characters, most recently, I think the last time I saw him was with Falcon when Falcon was Captain America. He's like, I need us to fight against this injustice. Sam was like, "We're gonna work this out a different way," and he got so angry and just was like strong, but at the same time, he's not bulletproof, right? So he still catches the biggest butt whoopings, like all the time. So
How would that help you as an assistant? What?
He's perfect for a regular day-to-day job.
yeah,
To do
Well, I
what?
think
He's
he-
out Karen any Karen.
but Jamar sounds like he'd get him angry just to start lifting heavy boxes, right? Like,
Maybe.
yeah, like we need to pack the van out. Go
Turn
get
on the
him,
news.
like,
Turn on the Philly
yeah.
news, and then come
Turn
back
on
to
the-
me when you're done.
But here's a secret, and I don't know if they've changed his story lately, but his original origin, and he's a 14-year-old.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
So this
he
is
was,
child labor
yeah.
now.
Well, now it got weird. I
All
didn't
right.
mean for that
I'm
part.
going there.
He's an intern.
Oh, he's an intern.
Yeah,
Not just
he's got his
private.
work. He's got his working papers.
Yeah.
He's got his work study, right? Like,
His work stuff, but the character. Now I'm nerding out. The character, I think, got lost a deal to Mephisto or something. So, but he looks like a 30-year-old, brolic dude, but he's really a 14-year-old.
oh, kind of like Shazam.
Or America.
Yeah,
So his
Yeah.
youthful rage is why he can't always accept the concept of society around him, because
Oh,
everybody thinks
Mhm.
he's a grown man.
That's America for you.
Mhm.
Black men.
that's
America.
so much therapy.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
I
gonna
mean-
find a comic book issue so you can read them.
A lot
'cause
of comic books characters, I'm sure, can need some therapy. But
Yeah.
Well, we know now. We know he wants Rage as an assistant.
There you
Oh,
go.
boy.
I'm glad we got that answer.
To lift some boxes?
That's all. Just lift boxes.
If you could have a limited run of any fictional character, who would it be, and what are some ideas that you have in mind for them?
To draw or write or something like that.
Yeah, and draw and write, yeah.
I think I always default back to classic Spider-Man. And even though I love Miles and everybody loves Miles, I'm a Peter Parker dude. And I think Peter Parker is always the most interesting when he can't win. Like he's always at the hair's breadth of losing. I think that's such an interesting character trait. He's got to get Aunt May's diabetes medicine, but the Scorpion's attacking the power plant, and there's a bus full of kids about to fall off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I love that.
We don't love OP characters here. No OP characters.
Wow.
Like he lives in a city where there's all these other superheroes, and no one's like, "Hey, Spider-Man, you need help."
He needs an assistant.
Yeah, he needs rage.
He needs Rage.
But now I would probably do something kind of like I said, I like kind of like classic Ditko, nerd Peter Parker, not like I don't even. I always enjoyed that area where he was always had girl problems, couldn't pay his rent, got fired from the Daily Bugle.
The struggle.
Yeah,
I like
Yeah.
struggle Parker.
I like Struggle Parker. Yeah, Struggle Parker because I think people can always relate. I think hustle culture Spider-Man, would be really interesting.
Yeah, when he has to kind of tap into those other superpowers, right?
Gig
Where it's like
economy.
your little web sling's not going to help you here. You have to
Right.
sort of
Mhm.
tap
Gotta have a
into
calendar, time
yes,
management,
money,
Yeah,
a paycheck.
yeah. I think Spider-Man would be doing DoorDash. You know what I mean?
Yes, he'd be great. Oh my god.
That's hilarious. I'm not mad at it.
I think that would be interesting to see because I don't think has there ever been a person of color to write for Spider-Man.
That's a good question.
Parker?
I believe
I don't.
so. There was at least one. I blanking on
Like,
the name.
Was
so
it
do
recent?
you really mean like person of color? Like we're including brown folk too? Because then maybe yes.
brown folks, but even a black man writing for Spider-Man has
But to write, right? I know there's been a couple of artists, but
Definitely.
I don't know about writing.
That's interesting.
Yeah, make some phone calls.
Yeah, you got all the connections.
We know a guy.
I'm waiting for you to introduce me to them.
Yeah, like we know a guy. They're not gonna answer our call, but like we always say like we know a guy. Like
At least a picture come up on their phone and they're like, not
Yeah.
right now. But you called.
yeah, us they be like,
Yeah.
who is this? Like, I have one last question, but I think it's like a final question. So
Sure, I think
Perfect.
perfect final question, and then we'll...
Okay.
Okay. And I think you spoke to this before a little bit, but what does the future look like for Jamar Nichols?
That's a great question. The future looks like uh, doing more work inside the middle grade book space. My Scholastic Graphics contract, I have, it's a series.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a series of books. So the first one, which came out in October, is Leon the Extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And this is cool, guys. I think everybody has a passing knowledge of how Scholastic Books
Yeah.
kind of like has a really strong foothold on just books in general.
Yeah.
And there are people that are surprised to find out that I think they're the number one publisher of comics in the United States.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's anyway. So, but on my label, I'm like on the Def Jam of kids books. Dave Pilkey does Dog Man and Captain Underpants is over there. Raina Teglemeyer's books, Bone, all that stuff. I'm all on that imprint. I'm still on deadline, so we'll have to wrap this up soon. I'm finishing up the art chores on the next Leon book, Leon the Magnificent.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that due next year?
It'll be out next year. It'll be out spring or summer 24, and that's going to be here before you know it.
Wherever it's going to be, we'll make sure your websites are in the links and descriptions. I think. I'm sorry, I don't know if you were done or not, but
and then after that, more. I have to say though, you guys, I think it's really important, and this isn't my main trumpet that I toot, but I'm really fortunate to be in a space where there's a little brown boy who is the main hero of a kids book series.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go into a bookstore, you see this kid face front on the cover, and he's not a sidekick,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not somebody's pal.
Yeah.
Like he's the dude.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very empowering, and I'm glad that I'm able to tell stories with him.
yeah, I had one comment to that because I wanted to say that early on. The 10-year-old me appreciates this because I didn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
We had Static, and Milestone had already done a lot of heavy lifting, but that also didn't really feel like I could apply it to my life.
Mm-hmm.
And to see Leon and the spaces that he operates with the school and family and friends was something I deeply appreciated because I read enough and I couldn't stop it, even though it was a middle grade book.
Middle grade, not middle age.
I was like, not middle age.
I can appreciate this because I was reading it for the sake of the middle grade me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate the work that you've already done, that you're continuing to do with Leon.
Thank you.
And
go
ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, no, because my question was gonna derail the moment, and I don't want to lose that. So.
No, bring it back. I can recover. I can rally.
I just wanted. Somehow it escaped me to ask how hard or not hard was it to push to have Leon be, a black boy with no powers and like not a sidekick, like he is the focal point, the spotlight.
You know what? I'll say it wasn't
bag. I don't want you to say anything that.
No. As I said earlier in our conversation, that I self-published Leon, the first Leon book, Leon Protector the Playground, and I don't know if it was all of the lines just kind of hitting at the right spot, but it caught on and people loved it, and people snatched it up, and I would go places and walk out of there with just the banner I brought in and nothing else. And I felt right there that this was a perfect time for this. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to keep pushing forward. So when it came time to kind of like make these grand moves and try to sign on with a publisher, they were right there and they're like, yo, let's do it.
Gotcha.
So I didn't have to dance for it, which I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
Don't we all appreciate it a little bit?
I love it.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, if there's anything else that you want to say before we let you go, or anything
Well,
that you
we got to draw a wrap up, but you're
Yeah,
welcome to
that's
stay a part of it.
Okay. Yeah. So I think what I'd like to leave everybody with is that there's nothing more powerful than imagination, and there's nothing more important than reading. Like we couldn't do half of the stuff we enjoy if we couldn't read, right? So if you have kids, or even if you don't, I think you have the agency to make sure little people are reading around you. If you don't want to pick up Leon because I'm not 10 years old, buy it and give it to the kid down the street.
Yep.
Or buy it and leave it in the laundromat.
Yep.
There's somebody's going to pick it up, and it'll change their lives, I hope.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, barflies and fans of Jamar Nicholas, I just want to say it was an honor and a pleasure to have you.
Yes.
OG, happy early birthday.
Happy early birthday.
55.
Thank you. I just need my saber.
Yeah, just a saber. And you could draw one if you had to. So I think.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that.
Sword of Omens.
A few housekeeping things. Quest item. Because this is a podcast, and so what we do here at the end of each episode is we give a quest item. And so I think the sacred pen of Jamar Nicholas.
Ooh.
And the invisible scroll.
Ooh. Sacred pen and
what
the
does it do
invisible
for
scroll.
You? All you got to do is use your imagination. And learn how to read. Just
learn how to read.
Well,
that was the whole point.
There's boons in there. Yeah, I didn't say it was like,
We had such a nice moment.
That was that was the whole point.
That's what I do.
We're marketing reading.
All right.
Last but not least, we will be at Philly Otaku Con.
Philly Otaku Con.
April 14th to the 16th. Jamar, if you're free, it sounds like you're never free. So, but if you find 5 seconds to stop by Cherry Street Pier,
and see
we
our
will
nonsense.
be there.
Yeah,
experience our nonsense again.
Yeah,
no, that sounds like a blast. I'll try to check it out.
Yes.
Yeah, you're more than welcome, and Barflies, you are more than welcome because it's a free event.
It's free. You don't have to pay anything.
Nice.
Yeah,
just parking.
At parking,
you got to find that on your own,
and you got to buy your own food.
That is also buy your own food. That has nothing to do with us at all. But
more like pay as you go, I guess.
As we always like to say here, y'all have a blessed night.
Deuces.